Dear friends, today's incident will touch the strings of the heart. As you listen to this incident, it will reach the heart's beats. This is not an incident but a true story. Hence, I request you to watch this video till the end, because we may be also making some mistakes unknowingly which will cost us dearly. I left my wife and 1-month-old daughter and went to London. Every time I mentioned returning to Pakistan, my mother and brother would stop me by telling me the story of their helplessness. 10 years passed like this. My wife got cancer and the poor lady kept pleading with me to come back, but I had to face the helplessness of my family. My wife died in agony like this. My 10-year-old daughter secretly sent me a message from Chachu's phone that Baba come back, or else these people would kill me too. When I came to Pakistan without telling anyone, I was shocked to see that it had been just 1.5 years since my marriage, and I had to go to Pakistan without any job. I had to come to London in this connection. I was the eldest in the family, and my father had always told me that the responsibility of the younger ones is now on me, because my father could not do any business due to illness. My name is Had. I belong to a village near Sialkot. Earlier, I used to work in a big company in Sialkot. The salary was also quite good, but as soon as I got married, my mother started telling me repeatedly that now the expenses of 2 houses could not be met with this salary. My wife was usually very patient and grateful, but sometimes she would come and make a request and my mother would scold her a lot. Ever since one of our close relatives went to London, the condition of his house changed drastically. My mother started telling me repeatedly that, "Son, you should go to London." I did not want to leave my wife and go to a foreign country, but seeing the pressure of my parents and the condition of the house, I took this decision. My wife Amreen had received a lot of jewelry from her parents. Amreen started telling me repeatedly that I should sell my wife's jewelry and meet the expenses of my departure to the foreign land, and as soon as I start getting my salary, I can make her jewelry back and give it to her. When I told this to my wife, she was surprised because the situation at my home was like this. I assured her that as soon as I reached London, I would make her jewelry back. She had 2 brothers and she was the only sister. She gave me this jewelry on the condition that her brothers should not know this, because Amreen knew that when this news reached my parents, they would be very sad. God soon gave me the good news of a child. My mother's attitude was strange from the beginning. She used to take great care of Amreen in front of me, but when Amreen would say that she scolds me for every little thing, I would often become silent on hearing this, and would tell Amreen with power that you are trying to create a rift between us, mother and son. Don't do this even when my sisters are present at home. Despite my sisters being present at home, it was Amreen's responsibility to cook food. Often when her health deteriorated, the doctor would strictly tell me that she needed rest at this time, and she would also scold me to give fruits to my wife to eat in this condition. But I was so entangled in the matter of going to London that I had deposited my passport and necessary documents in Sialkot itself. Whenever Amreen would ask me to bring something, Ami would get upset, and when I would go to Ami to ask for some money, she would show me a long list of household expenses, and would also say that you have been in a hurry to leave your job. When my in-laws realized these conditions, they started giving money to their daughters according to their status. Amreen had now started getting angry with me. I had 3 sisters and 2 brothers, whose entire responsibility was almost on Amreen's shoulders, because Ami would say that the sisters were very young, and anyway they had to work after going to their in-laws' house. Amreen was not happy with me. When she would say that she was tired at work, Ami would say in anger, "You don't touch the work, I will do it myself." And then Amreen would get back to work in embarrassment. One day, suddenly, Amreen's health deteriorated, so we took her to the hospital. God had blessed me with a daughter. My wife and I were very happy to see our daughter, but even here, Ami said that in our family, the first child is always a son. We both, husband and wife, became quiet after hearing this. Amreen's parents were also present in the hospital. Ami soon returned home. Anyway, I came home and distributed sweets according to my means, and named my daughter Fatima. Fatima was very cute. When Fatima became a mother, my visa came. As the days of departure were coming closer, my heart felt troubled inside. I was not able to understand how I could leave my small daughter and wife and go so far away. Then I would look at my parents and my siblings and think that it doesn't matter. I am the eldest, and I should at least do this much for them. I thought that in 3 years the situation of our house would change, and my mother was also sad all the time, and then the day of departure came. My sisters, my mother and my brother all came to drop me at the airport. My wife also wanted to come with them, but my mother stopped her, saying that my son had a child, and it will be difficult to leave after seeing you. so she should stay at home with her child. I felt very bitter about this thing of my mother, but I hid in my lap and went to the room and hugged my wife. I never thought that I would not see her alive again. I loved Fatima and then gave her to Amreen's lap. When I left the house, she was standing at the door with very sad eyes, and at that time she kept waving at me till we turned the corner and came on the road. With the blessings of my parents and siblings, I came to London. My cousin had already arranged a job for me. In Sialkot, I used to get a salary of 500 rupees. Now here I have started getting Pakistani rupees of 2.5 lakh. The work was very tough, but I kept working diligently. Along with work, I had to cook food and wash clothes in my turn like the other boys in the room. At that time, I used to miss home very badly. I would call again with due diligence. I would talk to everyone, but whenever I wanted to talk to Amreen, my mother would sit in the room. I was watching my daughter grow up on video call, and my mother would tell me a long list of needs. My brother's education was also going on, and little by little changes started coming in the house. My father also used to go around the village wearing a white cotton suit with great pomp and show. They used to walk around with their chest puffed up, thinking that their son was earning in a foreign country. Whenever I asked my mother if she was saving from her salary, she would start saying, "Son, don't you trust your mother? I spend every penny of yours very carefully. I fulfill all the needs of your wife and daughter as well." And then she would tell me that she has already started trying for dowry for my sisters. Only then will it be useful on the wedding day. I tried a lot to get a separate mobile phone for Amreen, but my mother would always say, "Women have a habit of troubling men. Even a small thing will trouble you. Don't worry about her. We take great care of her." I was about to complete 3 years in London. My younger brother, who was a student of matriculation at that time, refused to study and also insisted that he was fond of land. I was surprised to hear this demand from my mother, because I used to keep a little pocket money and give the rest of the money to my mother. My mother started scolding me on the phone that I should have kept some money separately and thought about preparing the house. It is not in her power to meet the household expenses and the children's expenses. She also used to say that my wife asks for separate expenses, and she has started feeling proud that this house runs on her husband's income. I should be a little strict with my wife and make her realize that this is not my favor, but my duty. Many times I would fight with Amreen because of the things told by my mother, and then I would not talk to her for many days. My daughter would see me only on the phone. Many times it would happen that Amreen would be sleeping and I would switch off the phone. My mother would say that she does not even do the household work now. Rather, all the work is done by my sisters. I kept harboring anger after listening to her words. I could not believe that Amreen could change so much. If I had called, my mother would have said that Amreen is not her mother's daughter. When she had gone home, I would get angry with my mother that why did she let her go to her maternal home without my permission. And when I would talk about calling her brother, my mother would make me swear and say that, "Son, you should not trouble them there. Otherwise, what will your in-laws think that we have troubled their daughter so much?" Slowly, I started getting fed up with my wife. Working hard day and night had made me irritable and bad-tempered. I now started living on as little money as possible. I used to think that my mother was saving money from my savings, and in a few years I would have saved so much that I would leave London and go back to Pakistan and live there. I will go and do some decent business. When I told my mother after 4 years, she said in surprise, "Son, right now only your brother's education and your father's treatment are being completed. Then there are expenses of your wife and daughter too, and you should try to find some other job." I got very upset after hearing this. My friends and relatives would explain to me that I should not trust my family members so much. But from the beginning, I had never opened my mouth in front of my mother and father, and their words were like a line of stone for me. Anyway, I found a better job than this. My salary here was close to 2 lakhs. My friends would go to eat in good hotels after getting their salary, and I would spend most of my time in my room. Amreen got a separate mobile phone from her brother, and whenever she would go to her room and try to talk, someone or the other would come to her. She would tell me through messages that I should come back to Pakistan. Now everything is here. The house is also going well, and you are here. but I should find a job on some pretext. When I would tell this to my mother, she would get angry and start crying. My sisters had also grown up. They also had to get married. Looking at my brothers, I wonder when will they get into some work. But my mother would break my heart every time by saying that they were still small children. There were all kinds of facilities in the house. I wanted a new house to be built, but my mother wanted my sisters to get married first. And thus I could not go to Pakistan even once in all these years. Time kept passing very fast. My hair turned grey. When I looked at Amreen, she started looking old before time. My daughter would call me again and again in her lisping tongue and would say, "All the children's Baba is with them. You should also come back." Hearing this, my heart would stop and I would disconnect the call and start crying. It was very difficult to spend a lonely life in a foreign land. My friends would look at me with great regret because they would often take leave. I used to go home, but whenever I spoke about going on vacation, my mother would find some or the other reason, and I was forced to send home the money I'd saved for my tickets. My two sisters were engaged to very good places, and I sent lots of stuff to Pakistan on their request. I was surprised that my sisters and my parents never told me even once that they would not get married without me. My mother would just encourage me emotionally and say that only the lucky ones get a son like you. I kept watching the wedding ceremony of my sisters on video call, but I was very surprised to see that my wife and daughter were wearing very simple clothes. When I told this to my mother, she became silent. And then I don't know what she said to Amreen that Amreen stopped calling me. I would get very upset seeing this. Many days would pass without me talking to my wife and daughter. My friends explained to me many times that I went to Pakistan without telling my family. I wish I had listened to them at that time. Once both my brothers demanded that they should take a maid. Hearing this, I got angry and did not call home for many days. Whenever I called home, I would immediately switch off my phone. My mother got upset and told my cousin. He met me and explained to me that I should not hurt my parents and call home. Auntie had explained to both of them. I hugged my friend and started crying and said that I miss my daughter and wife a lot. I told Shazia that I wanted to go to Pakistan, but she did not allow me. She told me that she was ready to give me a good amount of money to get my wife treated, but she could not send me to Pakistan because she was afraid that I would not come back to London. I was in a strange dilemma, and I called my mother and angrily told her that she could not take care of my wife in my absence. My mother got angry at this and switched off the phone. My father-in-law kept calling me to Pakistan again and again, but I kept telling him about the expenses at the same time. He also said that I can't go to Pakistan because the company does not give me leave. When I saw Amreen on the video call, I felt immense pain. I left such a beautiful and young wife and came to London so that I could meet the expenses of my family. But what happened to my life partner in this journey? The doctor used to say that she did not want to get well, and that perhaps her cancer had spread throughout her body. Within 6 months, she quietly left this world. I was there for her. Seeing this, my in-laws broke all ties with me and left my daughter with her grandmother. They thought I was responsible for their daughter's death, and to some extent they were right. My relationship with Amreen lasted for only 1.5 years, but I knew that she was God's slave and loved me very much. I had spent 9 years in London. Now it had become my compulsion to call home. They took undue advantage of my daughter. Amma would make my daughter sit in front of me and make me talk to her. One day I was told that my daughter does not want to study in school, but her silent and shocked face was telling me a different story. Now the marriages of my brothers also started. 1 more year passed. My 2 brothers were also married. Now both brothers were earning. I was taking care of Shazia's business. She would give me a fixed salary and also give me some amount for my daughter. For many days I was seeing strange dreams. I used to feel in my sleep that Amreen was calling me. Sometimes I see her wandering in the desert looking very sad, and sometimes she is seen sitting on the edge of a waterfall. She repeatedly tells me that she is in a lot of pain. I wake up in fear and start crying. Shazia also gets worried seeing my condition. This series of dreams continued for many days, and my condition kept deteriorating day by day. One day Shazia started saying to me, "I feel that Amreen is trying to tell you something. Is it true that your daughter Fatima is facing some problems? Do this." Go to Pakistan without telling her and see what the matter is. I was surprised to hear this from Shazia because she did not let me go to Pakistan even during Amreen's illness. But now when it was about my child, she immediately permitted me. After 4 years of marriage, God had also given Shazia the status of a mother. Maybe that is why she became so soft. Maybe she did not want to lose me. I immediately left for Pakistan. When I reached the village after 10 years, there was a lot of change everywhere. I looked at the village in amazement. When I reached my house, my neighbor told me that my family had sold this house and shifted to Rawalpindi a long time ago. I was surprised. They did not even like to tell me. When I reached my parents' new house asking for the address, I was surprised to see that a very expensive and magnificent house had been built, and 2 beautiful cars were also parked outside the house. The 10 years spent abroad had made me grow up. When I left Pakistan, I was a 28-year-old skinny young man, but now I had become a defeated man. When I rang the bell repeatedly, someone came running to the door. It was a weak girl with a scar on one side of her face. The girl kept looking at me in surprise for some time, and then suddenly recognizing me, she hugged me. Seeing her, I also felt that she was my daughter. I was in agony. She was weak, and the little girl whose face was badly burnt by something was none other than my daughter Fatima. I have been facing hardships in a foreign land for the last 10 years. My friend was present in this condition in my relative's house. We both, father and daughter, were crying while hugging each other. After a while, a woman wearing shiny clothes came screaming. She caught hold of Fatima's forehead and tried to pull her away from me and started asking me rudely, "Who are you and whose funeral are you celebrating by hugging her?" I got very angry on hearing this, and I entered the house calling Amma, Abba and my brothers. That woman followed me inside the house, stopping me. At that time, dinner was being eaten. Everyone was sitting at the dining table. Everyone was looking at me with surprise and got worried seeing Fatima's hand in mine. Amma was the first to think of this and hugged me crying like a spectator. Then Abba and my brother also hugged me one by one. I stood there and kept watching them all carefully. Amma tried to take Fatima's hand off my hand in a nonchalant way, but I pushed her hand away with all my strength. Fatima was standing on one side, cowering in fear. The woman who had come out of the house misbehaving was my brother's wife. My daughter's condition compelled me to look at my Amma strictly. I asked Allah, "Who has made my orphan girl like this? Who has burnt her face?" Amma slapped herself twice on her chest and said, "Son, do we look cruel to you? She is a child and does mischief." The servant was cooking food and she went into the kitchen. She had a frying pan in her hand. Maybe she took it off and kept it down. She reached there immediately and her face got burnt. I was not able to believe anything they said. I was not sure because a few days ago Fatima had messaged from her uncle's phone, "Baba, you come back, they will kill me like my mother." So I brought Fatima in front of her and asked, "Fatima beta, you tell me who burnt you. Now I am back." Fatima fearfully pointed towards her aunt. Then the lava of years suppressed inside me burst out and I started screaming badly. I asked my mother and father, "Am I not your Saki child? I stayed in a far-off state for years for you people. I killed Sakis, and in the back, my wife died due to incurable disease. Whenever I wanted to come back, I was stopped. Even now I would not have known anything if Fatima had not secretly messaged on my number from her uncle's phone. That is thankfully my second wife sent that message to me. If her heart had also become as hard as you people, then maybe like her mother, my daughter Fatima too would have become a target of your cruelty someday." My family stood there shocked to hear that she was leaving this world. Then suddenly my brother came forward and said, "Brother, you have said whatever you had to. You have returned home after so many years. If you want to live in the house with respect, then stay here and take your daughter with you and go from here." I was shocked to hear this, and as I started to say something, Amma and Abba also took his side very rudely and said, "Okay, we mother-son, if we are so cruel, then we cannot take responsibility for your daughter now. You take your daughter with you. When you have married again, only your second wife can raise your daughter. We have not taken any contract to fulfill your responsibility now." I was surprised how I was standing on my feet. Only I knew. I returned to my country after years of a long journey. But the house had also changed, and so had the family. Then I quietly held my daughter's hand and walked out of the door, thinking, can our people also be like this? I was going mad. I had to bear the loss of my parents and sisters and brothers. But with how much faith and respect I had. I took a taxi and went straight to my friend's house, stayed there for a few days, and then Shazia sent my daughter's passport and visa. I reached London with my daughter. Shazia accepted Fatima with all her heart, but I was not standing empty-handed even after losing everything. I had a kind-hearted wife with me who supported me in difficult times. Otherwise, the attitude of my people had brought me to the streets. Some time passed like this. Then my cousin told me that your mother died in a car accident. When they started burying your mother, flames started coming out of the grave, and even today snakes and scorpions are sitting on your mother's grave. Your mother and brothers killed your wife for the sake of money and ruined the life of this innocent girl. Your brothers suffered a great loss in their business, and today they are also forced to beg. They have so much debt that they sold everything, house, cars. I am with my daughter. I was thinking that the wealth they captured, and for the sake of that wealth they killed my wife and tortured my daughter and threw me out of the house. That wealth was of no use to them, and everything of theirs was looted, and they were ruined and were forced to wander from door to door. And today I am living my life full of happiness with my children and wife. If something is missing in my life, then it is of Amreen. Hence I request that no brother should leave his country and go abroad. People become your enemies. Take care of yourself and your wife and children. Eat half a roti, but don't go abroad leaving your wife and children helpless. I pray to Allah that Allah keep us all dependent on Him all our lives. And do not look at strangers. Allah Ta'ala has kept us all under His protection. Do not forget to write Amen in the comment box. And before leaving, do like this video. Thank you.